Hi, angel friend. I'm Kathy, the angel speaker, and today the angels have asked me to tell you the story of how I went from potentially the most blocked woman you have ever met spiritually to a person who receives messages pretty much 24/7, 365. One thing you need to know about my upbringing is I was raised in the Presbyterian church, and if the doors were open, we were there. And I submit exhibit number 1 as evidence of this for you. It's a picture of me, my brother, and my sister out in front of a church at a wedding. Now, not only did we go to weddings, we went to church. We went to Vacation Bible School. We went to potlucks. We went to missionary talks. We were in the choir, junior and senior choir. Anyhow, we were there all the time. Now, another thing you need to know about me is, and I'm showing you exhibit 2 here, this photo is of me and my 2 sisters. I'm an introvert. If you have sisters that look like this, you know why you're an introvert. I'm an introvert. And yes, regardless of those cat's eye glasses and that shirt, I really liked that shirt. I'm an introvert. Now, as I grew up and graduated, I got married, I had 2 kids, I started to move around the country, and because I had those kids, I wanted them raised in the church just like I was. And so everywhere we moved, I got involved in church. I was the director of the Vacation Bible School. I was a Sunday school teacher. I ran the kids' music program. I did the children's sermon. All the time I'm in the church. Now, in 1999, I went through a difficult divorce. And at that point in time, you know sometimes how your life is falling apart, but you don't realize that it's actually falling together? And I was so afraid of doing the wrong thing that I didn't do the right thing. My head ruled my heart, and I was not connected to my soul. It was just such a difficult time. And at that point in my life, I'd been giving some business seminars across the United States and Canada, and I had some success. I got to write for an article for a national magazine, so there were some very good things, but I was just kind of lost about who I was, what I wanted, where I wanted to go in life. And at some point, it just kind of came into my head, man, if there was a career that was like a life coach, I think I'd really like to be that. And it was the early days of the internet, way early days of the internet. But I thought, I'm going to look up and just see if there's anything like a life coach. And son of a gun, not only was there a career called life coaching, but a life coaching business was going to have a class in my town coming up in a couple months. So I signed up for it. I am all excited. This is going to be great. And I go to class. Now, I really thought it was going to be great. For me, it was great, but it was really, really, really bad. And because they expected you to live from your heart, and I didn't know how to do that. I had no clue. And in class, one of the weekends, what we learned was how to blurt. And that's actually what they called it. They said, this weekend, we're going to practice blurting. Now, I was raised that if you can't say something nice, you don't say anything at all. So I constructed like 347 filters between my brain and my mouth. So blurting was not something I was good at. And it was so bad. Everybody else in the room is like catching on. They've got it. They're excited. They're having fun. They're blurting. And I am doing nothing except failing. And then I realize I am about to burst into tears in a room full of people I barely know. I escape to the hall. I am sobbing, crying. It is really, really, really bad. Now, I actually thought about quitting a life coaching class, but I really wanted the certificate I got at the end, so I kept going. I did get through life coaching class. Whew, that was a good thing. And at one point, I am sitting there talking to someone I know pretty well. And I feel this something outside of me that says, tell her you think her life is on fire. And I'm like, what? And I'm still talking to her. And it comes again like, it feels like your life is on fire. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to say that. And there is a whole battle going on over here that I think she's got no clue about, because we kept our conversation going, and my stomach is turned into knots. And finally, I look at her and I say, I don't know where this is coming from, and I could be totally wrong, but it feels like your life is on fire. Now, friend, I have to tell you, these days, telling that to somebody would be like easy to come off of my tongue. But back then, no, that was really hard. And she looked at me. She is in shock. She's like, how did you know? She had been baking bread the night before, and it caught on fire in the oven, and she actually had to call the fire department out. And she talked about one time in her life where she did one small action that accidentally set a house on fire, and it burned to the ground. So for her, this was the perfect thing she needed to hear and to start looking at. So I'm like, oh, I don't know what that was, but that was really helpful. Then a few days later, I'm having another conversation with another person that I know, and I feel this outside pressure again to say, what are you running from? And I'm like, not you again. No, I'm not going to do it. And I'm having this whole conversation with her, and this message keeps coming in, and I'm like, no. And finally, I'm like, I could be totally wrong, but it just feels like I'm supposed to ask you, what are you running from? And she just stopped. And she got it. Like that was the message she needed. So I'm aware that something is happening. I'm not positive that it's angels. I don't exactly understand what it is yet. But on a weekend, I got this urge, this inner urge to call this person I barely know and just say hello. And I'm like fighting this for an hour going, no, I'm not doing it. And finally I lift up the phone and call, because again, my stomach is in knots. I call this person. I even thought about hanging up, but the phone was already ringing. And when he heard my name, he said, oh, I'm so glad you called today. It's the 1-year anniversary of my wife's passing. It happened just about an hour ago. I really need a friend. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Now, that hour ago was when I had gotten first the message that I should give him a call. So I started to think maybe I was getting messages from angels. And at that point in my life, with my life coaching in the background and thinking about what I wanted to do next in my life, I decided to sit down and write my life purpose statement. So I'm sitting on my couch in my living room, and I look down a little piece of paper that happened to be sitting there, and it had the words environmental healer on it. And I tell you, I get waves of goosebumps from my toes to the top of my head. And I'm like, whoa. And I look down at the paper again. The words are still there. I get this wave of goosebumps again. At some point, it strikes me that I'm supposed to take the word environmental out. So I do that, and I think, I am a healer. Waves and waves and waves of goosebumps. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I am a healer with the gift of transforming lives. And the goosebumps would not stop. I'm like, I am getting messages from angels. This is so amazing. And you know, when I first grew up in church, I communicated with God, but that was a one-way communication. That was me communicating in one direction. What I was receiving now was a response. And friend, I got to tell you, if the only thing you get from this is that you can get a communication that will help you to feel, remember that hot cold game we used to play where up colder, colder, you know, and they're walking through the room colder and they turn and go, oh, warmer, warmer, oh, hot, hot, hot. If that's all you get, it's so helpful. Angels speak to all of us. They speak to all of us all the time. They want you to know so very much that you're not alone. Ever. Ever. You always have backup. You always have support. You always have a friend, and you always have help. If this sounds helpful, I'd love for you to subscribe to this channel. We'll be putting out videos regularly about the angels and the messages that they're asking me to bring through. We would love for you to leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Like, share. The angels love you. I love you. Big hug. We'll see you soon.